Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome to another video. My name is Rushen Wickramaratne and this is my channel Root Hack. So in today's episode, guys, we are going to have a look at Advent of Cyber number 3 by TryHackMe 2021 edition. In today's clip, we are going to have a look at the story that this entire event is based on, and also this is a compilation of day number 1 all the way to day number 3, and all of these are based on web exploitation. So if you're someone who is actually looking forward to start off with hacking or generally in cybersecurity, web fundamentals are actually a very crucial and an important aspect. So web exploitation is something that you can definitely get started with. They're actually very cool and interesting stuff that you can learn here by completing these rooms. And before we move any further, please take a couple of seconds and drop a like to support the channel, subscribe, click on the bell notifications, do all that good stuff which is going to help me grow and also to help this channel grow. And I would actually really appreciate it if you could do that. Okay, enough with the talking. Let's hop onto my screen right here and let's get started. Alright folks, so first of all we're gonna have a look at the story and understand what this event is actually based on. The Christmas story. All exercises in Advent of Cyber follow a fun Christmas story. In this year, the elf Max Kiddie needs your help to hack back and undo the Grinch's malicious activities. So this is the same comic we saw before in the previous video, so I'll just go through it now. This is the issue 1, TryHackMe Comics. The Max Kiddie's office is right here, and there's this other guy right there, Chief Information Security Officer, and there is a letter on the table. Dear Max Kiddie, as our new Chief Information Security Officer, it's your job to keep us secure from any potential cyber threats. Don't let me down, Santa. I wonder how the other elf analysts are getting on. So this is something that Max Kiddie is wondering about, and he enters this room where all our security analyst elves go. And Max Kiddie can see this one desktop screen that is lit up, and it says one-way ticket, depart 8:20 am, whole wheel mount crumpet, system is hacked. And from the speaker you can hear a laughing, like a evil laugh. Muhaha, Grinch Enterprises will never let Christmas succeed. Where is your security team? This was all planned. How did the Grinch access our internal systems? And it says virus found right here on the computer screen. Looks like it's up to me to save Christmas once again. So this is what the comic is about, and let's read the rest of the story to get an idea about this. It's the eve of 30th November. Max Kiddie sits in her large office with a cup of hot cocoa, reminiscing over her stressful times at the best festival company. Since her management of the Christmas monster cyber attacks last December, she'd been promoted to Chief Information Security Office, CISO, and has managed to build a world-class security team. She made a promise to never let Christmas get affected by cyber incidents and has done everything in her power to prepare the best festival company for any incidents and assist Santa in delivering presents globally with no disruptions. So that is basically her task. As she grins to herself, after all we have done, what could go wrong? Elf, my assistant, runs into her office and gasps. All our security analysts have missed their last shift and no security personnel can be found in the building. Max Kiddie jumps out of her chair and spills her hot cocoa all over herself. She swiftly moves over to the elf security center housing the security personnel and looks over the large area filled with empty desks. Where did everyone go on the eve of the most important time of the best festival company? She rushes over to the desk of the head of her security analyst team, Elf McLeader, and notices the desk is surprisingly clean. For someone so messy, how is his work area completely empty? As she started theorizing in her head, she noticed a small piece of paper hidden at the back of the desk behind the screen. As she made sense of what was on the paper, her eyes widened. Why did Mac Professional book a one-way flight ticket away on this exact day? Before she had time to make any assumptions, a loud, grumpy voice was resonating across the security center from the internal announcement systems. Says, Grinch Enterprises will never let Christmas succeed. It would be a shame if your world-class security team just suddenly disappeared. This was all planned. How did they access our internal systems? Cried Max Keedy. Their intelligence team had prepared for this exact scenario, but it didn't help that the security center was completely empty. This needs to stop happening, sighed Max Keedy and dragged herself to the office to save Christmas. Okay, that's the story basically. So the Christmas story is used within some of the tasks, so make sure you read the above. Okay, so now we move on to web exploitation. So let's have a look at the first task. Saved the gifts. We have the story right here. Before that, there is a I think this is a mock website. Right, before we view this website, let's go through the story and continue that. The inventory management systems used to create the gifts have been tampered with to frustrate the elves. It's a night shift and Max Stalker comes to Max Keedy panicking about the gifts all being built wrong. With no managers around to fix the issue, Max Keedy needs to somehow get access and fix the system and keep everything on track to be ready for Christmas. The learning objectives of this particular task for day 1 are as following. What is an IDOR vulnerability? How do I find and exploit IDOR vulnerabilities? Challenge walkthrough. In here they explain what is an IDOR vulnerability. IDOR stands for Insecure Direct Object Reference and is a type of access control vulnerability. An access control vulnerability is when an attacker can gain access to information or actions not intended for them. An IDOR vulnerability can occur when a web server receives user-supplied input to retrieve object and too much trust has been placed on that input data, and the web application does not validate whether the user should in fact have access to the requested object. How do I find and exploit IDOR vulnerabilities? As previously mentioned, an IDOR vulnerability relies on changing user-supplied data. This user-supplied data can mainly be found in the following 3 places. First one is the query component. Query component data is passed in the URL when making a request to a website. Take for instance the following screenshot of a URL. And the URL breakdown is right here, guys. Protocol is given the domain name and what page is it, and we finally have the query component. Here we can see the profile page is being requested and the parameter ID with the value of 23 is being passed in the query component. This page could potentially be showing us personal user information, and by changing the ID parameter to another value could view other users' data. So if you manipulate this component and input a different number, maybe you can view different profiles, user profiles. That is what they're basically saying here. Post variables. Examining the contents of forms on a website can sometimes reveal fields that could be vulnerable to IDOR exploitation. Take for example the following HTML code for a form that updates a user's password. You can see from the highlighted line that the user's ID is being passed to the web server in a hidden field. The type is given as hidden right here, right? Changing the value of this field from 123 to another user underscore ID may result in changing the password for another user's account, right? So as you can see, this particular data right here can be manipulated. So this is an interesting topic where you can actually learn. I'm sure most of you have come across accepting cookies, declining them when you access a particular website or websites in general. So let's see what all these pop-ups that you see on this website are about. To stay logged into a website such as this one, cookies are used to remember your session. Usually this will involve sending a session ID, which is a long string of random, hard to guess text such as this number, which the web server securely uses to retrieve your user information and validate your session. Sometimes, though, less experienced developers may store user information in the cookie itself, such as the user's ID. Changing the value of this cookie could result in displaying another user's information. See below for an example of how this might look. As you can see, the cookie contains the user information here, user ID rather. So this can be definitely, if you have the knowledge how to manipulate a cookie, definitely you can tweak the values and do some damage with it. And we move on to IDOR in the wild. Seeing a product, user or service identifier in the URL or otherwise is a must to test. IDOR vulnerabilities can reveal sensitive information as well as potentially giving you access to usually restricted site functionality. For security researchers, IDOR vulnerabilities can be impactful, and reporting them can yield a good bug bounty. And they have given a link to an article where an IDOR vulnerability report to PayPal had a $10,500 payout. So that's big money. And bug bounty is one of the best ways where you can improve your hacking skills and also make some bucks out of it. Finally, we are moving on to the good stuff, which is the challenge walkthrough. Click the green View Site button at the top right of this task to open up the inventory management system. Okay, so in order to do this, we need to have the mockup site open. So this is what the mock website looks like. As we learned about, an IDOR vulnerability requires changing some kind of user input. Out of all the pages we can navigate to, the only page that has input that can be altered is on the your activity page. You'll see in the URL a query component parameter named user_ID, which is set to the value of 11, MaxKD's user ID. Try changing the user_ID value in the address bar and you'll see that the web application tries to load another user's information. Try different numbers between the values 1 to 20 until you find a user who could have been responsible for the tampering on the system. Let's move on to the final bit. Clicking on the revert button on the user's actions will roll back the changes and allow the toy making machine to make properly built toys again. Once all the changes have been reverted, you will be rewarded with a flag which can be entered below. First of all, let's go ahead and actually view that mockup site and see what the data included in each and every page. So view site. Alright, and the instructions are given here. The inventory management systems used to create the gifts have been tampered with to frustrate the elves. It's a night shift and Max Stalker comes to MaxKD panicking about the gifts all being built wrong. With no managers around to fix the issue, MaxKD needs to somehow get access and fix the system and keep everything on track to be ready for Christmas. Okay, so these are the okay, so this is basically the dashboard. As you can see, all these toys and their additional parts have been shuffled. So definitely this machine has been compromised, data has been tampered. Let's go to this page, builds, toy train. SKU basically stands for stock keeping unit, guys. So if you are to build a toy train out of this machine, train base, teddy bear head, this shouldn't be here obviously. what should be here under toy train is train wheels. So this has to come all the way up here. Teddy bear head has to go under the teddy bear manufacturing section. Under teddy bear section we have teddy bear body, spinning top plunger. So basically this data has to be reverted to the original place, then the machine will put these pieces together and build one particular toy. Inventory page has this particular data right here, and your activity. So right now the user ID is number 11, and it basically stands for the employee ID right here, which is Mac Skiddy. Position is junior toy tester, no recent activities. Okay, let's go to our questions right here and see what they're asking us. After finding Santa's account, what is their position in the company? This is going to be interesting. So let's start with maybe number 1. Click enter. Number 1 is Santa. So what is his position? The boss, with an exclamation mark at the end. Copy that, paste it in. Next question, after finding Max Stalker's account, what is their position in the company? Let's try number 2. User not found. Number 3, Max Stalker is the build manager. Copy that in, paste. After finding the account responsible for tampering, what is their position in the company? The tampered account should be having some sort of activity right here. So let's find an account with activity. Number 4, nothing. 5, nothing. 6, nothing. 7, nothing. 8, still nothing. 9, there we go. We got the Grinch's account, employee ID number 9, and here's some activity right here. Position is mischief manager. Copy, paste. What is the received flag when MaxKitty fixes the inventory management system? Let's actually revert all these actions. There we go, MaxKitty has fixed the inventory management system. This is the flag. Copying that, paste, submitted. You guys can go ahead and try this out if you want to learn more about these vulnerabilities. Tasks released each day get progressively harder but are still guided with walkthrough videos. Come back tomorrow for day 2's task. And yeah, we can hit that and complete. Okay, welcome to day 2 of exploiting the web. Now let's move on to the story. MaxKitty needs to check if any other employee elves have left or been affected by Grinch's industry attack, but the systems that hold the employee information have been hacked. Can you hack them back to determine if the other teams in the best festival company have been affected? The learning objectives are as follows: understanding the underlying technology of web servers and how the web communicates. Understand what cookies are and their purpose. Learn how to manipulate and manage cookies for malicious use. These are some really cool, interesting stuff here. Next, we are going to learn a bit about HTTP and HTTPS. For your computer and a web server to communicate with each other, an intermediary protocol is required. This is where the HTTP or Hypertext Transfer Protocol is introduced. The HTTP protocol is a client-server protocol to provide communication between a client and a web server. HTTP requests are similar to a standard TCP network request. However, HTTP adds specific headers to the request to identify the protocol and other information. When an HTTP request is crafted, the method and target header will always be included. The target header will specify what to retrieve from the server, and the method header will specify how. When retrieving information from a web server, it is common to use the get method, such as loading a picture. When sending data to a web server, it is common to use the post method, such as sending login information. Example request and example responses are given here, you guys. Once the server receives a request, it will send back a response including any requested content if successful, and a status code. The status code is used to tell the client browser how the web server interpreted the request. That is something to keep in your mind. The most common successful status code is HTTP 200 OK. The protocol itself is only one small piece of the puzzle. Once content is retrieved from the web server, your web browser needs a way to interpret and render the information sent. Web applications are commonly formatted in HTML hypertext markup language, rendered and styled in CSS cascading style sheets, and finally JavaScript is also commonly used to provide additional functionality. In today's web environment, the use of web frameworks has significantly increased in popularity. Most modern web applications use many web frameworks and other web solutions that an end user does not see or interact with. For more information about HTTP requests, methods, and headers, click out the Web Fundamentals room. If you access this room, you can definitely learn stuff about web fundamentals, how the web works, web servers, clients, all that good stuff. So do check this out. Next, we are moving on to cookies. I think in the previous task we discussed about this cookies as well. HTTP is a stateless protocol. When you send requests to a web server, the server cannot distinguish your request from someone else's request. To solve the stateless problem and identify different users and access levels, the web server will assign cookies to create and manage a stateful session between client and server. Cookies are tiny pieces of data, or rather metadata, or information locally stored on your computer that are sent to the server when you make a request. Cookies can be assigned any name and any value, allowing the web server to store any information it wants. Today we will be focusing on authentication cookies, also known as session cookies. Authentication or session cookies are used to identify you and what access level is attached to your particular session. Below is a diagram describing assigning and using a cookie from the initial request to the session request. This is a very useful diagram, guys. As you can see, we have our browser on our local PC, which communicates with the server, in this case TryHackMe.com. As you can see, the initial request is sent from post. Server is responding back with HTTP 200 OK, setting up the cookie right here, and again the browser sends the second request, which is a get request, admin portal access. Server response HTTP 200 OK, user is THM or rather TryHackMe. This is what a initial request for the session, or rather to create the cookie or set up the cookie looks like. To begin the process, when you send a request such as a login request, your browser will send that information typically as a post request to the web server. The web server will verify that it received the data and set a unique cookie. As previously mentioned, cookies are arbitrary and values are determined by best practice or the web developer. Once cookie is assigned, as long as the cookie stays locally stored in your web browser, all future GET requests will be automatically sent with that cookie to identify you and your access level. Once the server receives your GET request and cookie, it will locate and deserialize your session. Deserialization is the process of taking a data format such as JSON and rebuilding it as an object. If successful, the web server will reply to your request with a 200 response. Now that we understand what cookies are and how they are used, let us dive into their content. All these cookie components are given here with a nice breakdown with their purpose and a typical example. I would say the most important two components when you are conducting an attack is to just focus on the name component and also the value component. Name, the purpose of the name is unique cookie identifier, arbitrarily set by web server, always paired with the value component. It can be the session ID, right? The value component is unique cookie value, arbitrarily set by web server, always paired with the name component. And this is what the typical example look like. It is a long word with numbers, with digits and actually letters in it, which is hard to memorize, right? Okay, moving on. Cookie manipulation is the next topic. Cookie manipulation is taking a cookie and modifying it to obtain unintended behavior determined by the web developer. Cookie manipulation is possible because cookies are stored locally on your host system, meaning you have complete control over them and modify them as you please. To begin modifying and manipulating cookies, we need to open our developer tools. In Google Chrome, developer tools are known as the Chrome developer tools, and in Mozilla Firefox, they are known as the Firefox developer tools. Developer tools can be accessed by pressing F12 or Ctrl plus Shift plus I. Once developer tools are open, to access your cookies, navigate to the storage tab in Firefox or application tab in Chrome or Edge. Select the cookies drop down on the left hand side of the console. Cookie values may seem random at first, however they often have an encoded value or meaning behind them that can be decoded to a non-arbitrary value, such as a JavaScript object, which is quite interesting, right? From an attacker's perspective, you can decode the cookie value to identify the underlying objects. Once you have identified the underlying objects, you can modify them to what you want. To use the cookie, you will need to encode it back to the original encoding and replace the cookie value. Below is an example of a decoded cookie value, right here. Now that we have all the pieces of cookies and how to manipulate them, we can put them all together to gain unintended access. Below is a summary of how cookie values could be manipulated. Obtain a cookie value from registering or signing up for an account. Decode the cookie value to identify the object notation or structure of the cookie. Change the parameters inside the object to a different parameter with a higher privilege level, such as admin or administrator. Re-encode the cookie and insert the cookie into the value space. This can be done by double-clicking the value box. Action the cookie. This can be done by refreshing the page or logging in. As you can see, guys, like every single thing that we need to conduct this attack, or to rather manipulate the cookie, is given here step by step. Open the static site in a new tab right here. So let's click on it. Wow. Okay. For an existing user, we can log into the page, or we can register if you are not registered. Let's have a look at the URL. Actually, it's a secured one, static-labs.tryhackme.cloud sites aoc-cookies. Okay. Just to give you some context, I'm actually using Firefox, right? So I need to access developer tool in order to weave the cookies and manipulate them, right? We open the site, completed, register an account and verify the cookies using the developer tools in your browser. What is the name of the new cookie that was created for your account? So they are saying go and register. We are going to click up on sign up. I'll just zoom this in, right? We are going to click on sign up here. Let's go with my own name, password, anything you want, guys. Email, let's say Rushin at gmail.com. That is not my email, guys, so if you're trying to email me, that will not work. Create account. I will go ahead with don't save. Oh, you don't have permission to register an account currently. Please contact the administrator for some assistance. But what we are looking at here is the cookie, right? So I'm pressing F12 on my keyboard, and I am going to go to storage. As you can see, cookies is already opened up right here. You can view the cache information for this website, indexed database, local storage, what is stored locally on the web browser itself, session details. Right now the focus is cookies. This is the website right here, and as you can see, the name given for this particular cookie is user-auth. So I'm just going to copy that in, go back. What is the name of the new cookie that was created for your account? User-auth. If you have any struggle, you can use this hint. Next question is, what encoding type was used for this cookie value? If you look at this, digits are from 0 to number 9, and the letters are given from A to F, which means this is hexadecimal. Yeah, I hope I'm correct. Submit. Got that one right. Moving on to the next question, what object format is the data of the cookie stored in? Although we got the answer correct, let's look at the hint, because I want to show you guys something. Use CyberChef to decode the value. If you guys are not aware, actually CyberChef is a superb website where you can do a lot of like interesting stuff online. Let me show you. CyberChef. There we go. Basically you can actually drag and drop any of these what they are referring to is as recipe, or I would rather call them functions, and do the conversion right here, and you can basically get the outcome from there, right? Let's take this value right here. I'm going to paste it on input, and I'm going to use from hexadecimal, and as you can see, the outcome, the output actually becomes more sensible. Company name is the Best Festival Company, is registered, true username, like I entered before, it's my name right here, right? So it's definitely use this tool. There's so much that you can do with this. I think now it's more clear that you get all the values from 0 to number 9 and from the letter A to F, which means it's hexadecimal, the answer right here for the encoding. Okay, so moving on to the next question, what object format is the data of the cookie stored in? Okay, let's have a look at the hint for this particular one. A type of object notation. This definitely looks like a notation from right here. Yeah, I would say this looks a lot like JSON right here, with the curly brackets, colons, and all that stuff, with the commas and everything. So let's type JSON here. JSON, not JSON. Yep, that's the correct answer. Manipulate the cookie and bypass the login portal. What is the value of the administrator cookie? They're saying to use admin as the username. Okay, so to do this manipulation, let's go back to CyberChef. I'm going to copy the output, get rid of this, get rid of this input, and paste. And they are basically saying to use admin right here for the username. So that is exactly what we're gonna do. Get rid of my name, use admin. Now we are going to convert this to hex, right? There we go. This should be the answer for the next question, but as you can see, guys, there are so many spaces right here. You can change it from space to none. Copy this. I hope this works. There we go. That's the correct way to do it. Next, what team environment is not responding? Looking at the hint indicated by a red status symbol. To do this, let's go and insert this manipulated cookie right here in the value section. Getting rid of this, pasting this in, enter, done. Next step would be to actually refresh this page. Before we do that, I'm going to get rid of this entire section in the URL and enter. There we go. Alright, so what is our answer right here? It says the okay, I can't remember the question now. What team environment is not responding? And the hint is indicated by a red status symbol, which is HR. Submit. What team environment has a network warning indicated by a yellow status symbol? That would be application, right? Too lazy to type, you can just copy that in. There we go. That is pretty much it for day 2. And finally, if you want to learn more about authentication bypasses, we suggest trying out this room. They have given this particular room. If you're interested, do go and check it out. Definitely it will help you. I'm gonna mark that as completed. Tasks released each day get progressively harder, but are still guided with walkthrough videos. Come back tomorrow for day 3's task, where Insider PhD will be recording a video walkthrough. Mark. And that is all pretty much for day 2. Next, we'll have a look at day 3. This is Advent of Cyber day 3. We are doing web exploitation, and this one is called Christmas Blackout. Let's hop onto my screen and have a look. Alright, let's expand this. Grinch Enterprises have also tried to block communication between anyone at the company. They have locked everyone out of their email systems, and Max's admin has also lost access to their admin panel. Can you find the admin panel and help restore communication for the best festival company? In simple terms, basically we are going to be accessing a web portal, and they have given us a machine. So let's open it up. You can use the attack box option here. It's a web-based attack machine, and it's also recommended. Or you can set up your own VPN and access this particular machine through a virtual machine. I'm going to go with the attack machine. It's opening up here right in this window. Next, done, and they will show us the IP right here once it's booted up. In the meantime, let's look at the content here. Learning objectives. In today's task, we are going to be using our investigatory skills and techniques to discover unlisted content and attempt some common authentication using the clues around us. What is content discovery and why is it useful? Before we begin looking for content, let's define what content actually is. Content is the asset and inner workings of the application that we are testing. Contents can be files, folders, or pathways that weren't necessarily intended to be accessed by the general public. For example, you may have a blog where you post about your tasted treats. You want everyone to weave all of your delicious snacks, but you don't want everyone to be able to manage what delicious snacks are up for review. You may hide the administrator panel away from the public, right? If you are familiar with WordPress, this will make a lot of sense to you. By default, for WordPress websites, straight after the domain name, you can enter a /wp-login that will give you access to the admin portal on the back end. If you are a good developer, a good web developer who has knowledge and who has expertise in this area, you will basically hide this URL. You won't you will change this particular section and rename it to something else. If you leave the default, this is easy access to an attacker to gain access to the admin portal, right? So if you're building your website, do change this section. Let's expand on this. Web servers, unless configured otherwise, are designed to serve these files and folders as long as you know the names. They've given some folder basic destinations here. There's a passwords.txt file. Content discovery is a useful technique to have in our arsenal because it allows us to find things that we are not supposed to see. For example, we may be able to find configuration files, passwords and secrets, backups, content management systems, administrator dashboards, or portals. These are just some examples of the types of information that we may be able to uncover by discovering content. We can find these pieces of information because they are stored in either a folder, which obviously have a name, or a particular file, which will have both a name and an extension as well. This means that we can search for files by their extension. They've given an example saying discovering text files with the extension of .txt. You can do this manually by thinking of some names such as admin or passwords.txt and navigating to it in your browser. However, we can use tools to do this process for us at a considerably faster rate. Enter dirbuster, right? So what dirbuster is, basically, this has given us the definition. Dirbuster is a multi-threaded Java application designed to brute force directories and file names on web application servers, right? Basically, we are going to be using this on the attack machine today and find cool stuff about this particular IP address that has been given to us. Dirbuster is a tool that we can use to automate this process for us. The tool works by accepting a word list, which is a file containing everything that we want to search for, and then a few other arguments. Let's demonstrate this into the snippets below. Yeah, so they have given some examples here. Dirbuster will scan the website Authentication Cookies.thm for the folders listed within this word list. To use Dirbuster to discover content on this site, we would use the command dirb and provide some information such as the URL of the website and the location of the word list. Our final command would look like something similar to the snippet below. Here is the example. So you can see here, guys, we will be using this most probably when we attack the box, right? In the above, we have provided Dirbuster the following commands: the URL of the website, the location or the full path on our attacking machine of our word list. If you are unfamiliar with this, check out Linux Fundamentals. This is a particular room where you can learn a lot about Linux from like the very basics itself. So do check this out. Now, once we execute this command, Dirbuster will search for the existence of a directory on the website using every value in the word list that we have created, right? Your ability to discover content is only as good as your word list. You will find another collection of open source word lists such as sec lists, where you may be able to use a combination of context and word list to discover content. Here you can find some default credentials. Web applications and services often come with a default pair of credentials. Developers leave these credentials in place so that you can quickly get started with the platform. with the hopes that you will change them, obviously. However, as you will come to discover, not everyone does it, unfortunately, right? So these are the platforms that becomes vulnerable for attacks. Or in fact, applications often include other accounts that are not well documented. Checklists also provide a word list for default credentials, which you can find here, right? If you click on this link on a GitHub, on the GitHub you can find these default credentials. And here are some examples of username and password combinations for privileged users. Sometimes these credentials are stored in the web application's configuration files or public documentation. For example, this application Bike It is an open source application for registering your bicycle to a community page. The administrator is enabled by default with credentials provided in both the documentation and source code. Basically, the source code contains these default credentials. Unless the administrator installing this application changes the credentials, anyone will be able to log in using them if they know to look for these details being published, such as they usually are with open source projects, or are capable of guessing them. For today's task, so that is the task, right? Today's summary is basically that. Now moving on to the questions. Using a common word list for discovering content, enumerate this particular IP to find the location of the administrator dashboard. What is the name of the folder? Let's hop on to the virtual machine and get started. Alright, so I'm gonna open up a web browser. So they have given Firefox here. Minimize this. Loading. So I'm gonna open up a new tab. I doubt we can copy this straight in to this URL section. So http://10.10.49.27. Already I can see the name here. It says day 3. Why is this so slow? Alright, here we are. This is still loading, but we do have the interface. I don't know, for some reason it's quite slow. This is not actually what we are really interested in, right? We do need to find answer to this particular question, which is what is the folder of the administrator dashboard. What I'm going to do is I'm just actually going to minimize Firefox, open up a terminal, and we will use this particular command, right? So which is cd change directory usr share word lists. Alright, so let's get the list. Since they discussed about sec lists, actually let's have a look at that. So what I'm gonna do is change directory to sec lists and view the list. So as we can see here, guys, there are many files that contains like payloads, web shells. This looks a lot like a GitHub that anybody can download, so I'm not really keen on checking further here. Let's start actually using Dirbuster here, right? Checking what is in here, the content. Out of all these files, I would go and check small text quickly and see what is in there. Okay. Logs, pages, site server, sources, stats, underscore admin pages, access granted accounts, admin login details, administrator, SQL, Lots of good stuff here. I'm exit this now because this basically looks pretty good. We are going to use the dirb command, which is dirb, and we are going to be using this particular format. We are going to need the site's address, which is this IP, http, wait, no, okay, leaving a space, http://10.10.49.27 and space small.txt. Press enter. There we go, the dirb is working. As you can see, it has accessed many directories here. Some of these like assets files are like static files for CSS, JavaScript, image files for the website that we had a look at. So out of all these directories, our focus should be the administrator dashboard. Let's look at the obvious here, right? I'm gonna copy this link, go back to Firefox, paste and go. There we go. That is basically the folder for the admin portal, or rather the dashboard. Submit. That's the correct answer. Next question is, in your web browser, try some default credentials on the newly discovered login form for the administrator user. But what is the password? Can we copy this straight here? Nope. Administrator. Let's look at the obvious passwords. Maybe start with this one. Paste that in. You have successfully logged in. That wasn't that difficult at all. If you went in like reverse order, you will have 3 attempts, but just straight up right there. What is the password? It is administrator, right? So too lazy to type, no problem. Copy it right here. Now they are saying access the admin panel, and what is the value of the flag? All I did was click on OK. As usual, it's taking some time. I'm not sure why that is. After a couple of minutes, it's finally loaded, and there you have it. This is the flag. Unfortunately, we can't copy this, so let's type that in. ADM #1 N _ AC #3 SS. Submit. And as you can see, guys, that is all pretty much for day 3. These are very beginner friendly. There's not much going on, but I do hope if you like establish yourself on these fundamentals, because these are things that you can develop on and improve on your hacking skills, right? So yeah, that is pretty much all for day 3. Alright, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in and watching the entire video all the way through. We do have more web exploitation related videos coming up, obviously based on advent of cyber by TryHackMe. So stay tuned, and thank you again for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Take care and be safe.